Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Administrative Information Session held with members of the Environmental Advisory Council, taking comments, making a presentation on recycling and mandatory recycling, specifically single-use plastics and expanded polystyrene products ordinance proposal. You'll hear from Andrea Sue, Karen McGarry-Rosen this evening, and perhaps Susan Meyerhoff, regarding their findings, recommendations, and thoughts, and a presentation so that the public can be informed as to what they're recommending, why they're recommending it, and what the impacts will be. There'll be a time for anyone who arrives in the room to ask any questions. It'll be the same format as we have had for other administrative information sessions where there's dialogue back and forth. We'll turn to those who are online, and this is going to be recorded so the people in the public will have the benefit of the presentation by Ms. Sue and the other members of the EAC. With that, I'd like to introduce Andrea Sue of the Environmental Advisory Council.
Thanks, Rich. So I am the EAC secretary. We are, as Rich indicated, the Environmental Advisory Council. We are consisting of 7 appointed members, and there are 3 of us standing here or sitting here that will be sharing what we are proposing tonight. And as Rich said, we are going to basically provide a public information session so that there's an opportunity for a discussion. Nothing is set in stone. This is simply what we're proposing, and we're providing some information and sources for why we are proposing what we are. So with that, I will also like to introduce my other colleagues here. Karen, we'll start with you, my co-presenter.
Hi, I'm Karen McGarry-Rosen. I'm the vice chair of the EAC.
And then I'll just, so Sue doesn't have to stand. Sue Meyerhoff is our chair for the EAC, and we've all been longtime members together. So the question comes up is, why are we talking about this, or why is this important? Obviously, there's a lot of bigger problems in the world, but this was an initiative that we decided to take because we felt that this was something that was attainable. And there are other members of a Southeast PA coalition that we collaborate with and kind of communicate ideas with, and we've had pretty good trend of success in our region. So some of the main reasons, of course, why we're proposing to prohibit single-use plastics is because a lot of the plastics do enter our environment. We have clogged stormwater infrastructure, and of course that causes more, heavy flooding and stormwater management issues, and ultimately that causes damage to private and public properties. We also have entanglement of recycling machinery, which also causes, higher costs in recycling and increased work hours to fix a lot of that entanglement. Penn Environment is basically an environmental research and policy group in Pennsylvania that has helped to provide really important information and studies. One of the studies that they did was a water sampling in all the 50 major waterways in Pennsylvania, and they identified concentrations of plastics in every waterway, including 50 of the cleanest. And these, we're talking about Class A trout streams where people are fishing. And last but not least, of course, plastics, as we all already know, are harmful to human health and to wildlife and the environment. In addition to just the obvious physical dangers like entanglement or ingestion, we also have chemical leachates and what we call microplastics, which are basically further broken down plastics that enter into our environment that are consumed without even our knowledge. So some other additional statistics. These are based on some resources that we have collected. In this presentation, I should add that anything that you see that is highlighted are actual references to our sources of information. You don't need to, for QR codes or any links that I do provide in this presentation, you will be able to capture those later on because we will post this PowerPoint later on within the next couple of days, hopefully, to the EAC homepage or the Abington Township homepage. So additional facts about the plastics, as of this year, we've determined that there's an estimated 5% of plastic that's actually recycled. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the recycling, even within our township, there's a lot of commingled recycling. When recycling materials are commingled, sometimes there's a lot of rubbish and materials that are not recyclable, so a lot of that cannot be recycled. So that's why the percentage of plastic that's actually recycled is quite low. In fact, almost 86%, actually a little bit more than 80%, 86% of household plastics are actually just basically dumped into landfills. And that's a significant portion. And of course, with overseas countries not being able to accept our waste anymore, it's becoming an increased issue with the volume of plastics that are entering our landfills. And of course, lastly, we do have a lot of plastics that are actually incinerated. A lot of people don't realize that almost 10% of household plastics are incinerated. And of course, this picture is not how we incinerate plastic, but there is that same percentage. I mean, that percentage is incinerated in basically waste-to-energy facilities and plants. And of course, that same process still releases a lot of toxins that are toxic to human health and to wildlife. And things like bisphenols, which are also known as BPAs, as we all know, phthalates, which specifically can affect reproductive health, and also brain development and the endocrine system. This was this was an EPA report that was released a few years ago, and this was data that was from the American Chemistry Council, and it was spanning from 1960 to 2018, and they basically calculated how much of the plastic waste volume was entering which types of waste streams. So as you can see, the vast majority of our household plastic wastes actually enter landfills, and that equates to, per year, about 50 billion pounds of plastic, which is a tremendous amount, and this is in tonnage here. Also, the second most highest volume is the incinerated, which is represented in the light blue, and then the smallest proportion, of course, is what's recycled, as we mentioned in the last slide. So, an important thing about plastics to know is that plastics aren't biodegradable, as most of us know that, but instead they actually break down further and degrade into what we call microplastics. So microplastics are generally defined as any particle of plastic that's 5 millimeters in dimension or less, and that they can be so small that they're almost invisible. And that's the danger, is that those are, basically, when we ingest, when we're just, drinking water or any other common foods and beverages, there's actually like small amounts of plastic that are present in what we ingest. The Worldwide Fund for Nature actually did a study a few years ago where they estimated, based on not blood samples, but based on plastic concentrations in common food and beverages. They were able to estimate that on an average person can consume up to 5 grams of plastic a week, and that equates to basically a credit card's amount of plastic. Also, another important study that we wanted to point out was Penn Environment, as I mentioned, is the policy group. They did a study in 2021 that found microplastics in every waterway, as I mentioned, but these QR codes, you don't need to capture those now if you don't want to. I will share these with you so you can see the studies for yourself. This was a really good graphic. This was based on a study that basically identified all the states, or the states that are in progress with a ban on single-use plastics. The states that are represented in green are the 10 that actually have an outright ban. And as you can see, Pennsylvania included in the purple, as well as some other states. There are basically partial bans or charges on the use of single-use plastics. So, and Colorado has a charge, but I understand that they will be having an outright ban sometime next year. As far as globally, and I didn't include the map, but I can share that later. There are 103 countries globally that have an outright ban on single-use plastics. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the ban plus fee model. This was a graphic we produced. We do collaborate a little bit and share information with other Southeast PA municipalities. We consist of probably over 30 or 40 municipalities. And we collect all that information, and we have determined that there are as of this month, there are 24 cities or municipalities that have an outright ban on single-use plastics, some with fee, some without. Those are represented in green. And you can see we outlined the PA counties, and also the inner boundaries are the different cities and municipalities. One of the earliest adopters of a ban is Narberth, which you can see here. Actually, can't find the pointer, but they were an early adopter, and two of the other earliest adopters are the city of Philadelphia.
We can tap the screen.
Oh, you can tap the screen?
Yes,
Oh, that's great.
to Narberth.
Okay, right there. Oh, that's great. Wow. Okay, so I'll move that over there. And then two of the other earliest adopters, and by early adopter, I mean like 2019, which was a few years ago, is the city of Philadelphia, which definitely helped kind of launch some of the other neighboring municipalities to also have a similar proposal, and then also Westchester. Those municipalities that are represented in the light green are those that are either in progress or are in the process of proposing an ordinance, like we are, and we're, of course, where the red star is located. Oh, also not represented, but in the inset map on the right here, you'll see the city of Pittsburgh, and then somewhere here is Lancaster. Lancaster Township have also successfully passed an ordinance on single-use plastics, but we didn't represent them here because they are not our immediate neighbors. So the big question is, what are we proposing? This is kind of like a snapshot of what we are proposing, and we are welcoming any suggestions on anything based on this information. But we are basically proposing to prohibit single-use plastics. And by single-use plastics, we define that as any bag that is made predominantly of plastic that is made from a blown film extrusion process. And that's basically the most common process by which single-use plastics that you see in the supermarket are produced, as well as a ban on plastic straws and stirrers, unless they are needed for, unless they are requested or, needed for special cases. And then we are also proposing that businesses incur a 15-cent fee on paper bags, which will be an acceptable stopgap measure in place of plastic bags. And I'll explain a little bit more on why we are proposing that. There are a number of exemptions because we recognize that businesses, we can't make a drastic change in banning all plastic bags, and we know that for things like bulk items, like loose bulk items, like fruits, nuts, grains, as well as transporting, fresh meat or fish, transporting live animals, and of course laundry, dry cleaning, and newspapers are, necessary at this time. And I think, the plan eventually is we would move in the direction of also trying to reduce plastic waste for these processes as well. As far as when we want to adopt this, we recognize that this transition will take time, and we can certainly adopt an ordinance if we all agree on the criteria, but it can go into effect sometime next year. So getting back to the 15-cent fee, as far as plastic bags, paper bags are really equally as harmful in a different way. And paper bags in some ways can have a more negative environmental impact simply because it takes more water and energy to produce them. And even though technically they are recyclable, studies have shown that bags are not being recycled, or they're simply being thrown out. And there's an inefficient process in the recyclability of paper bags. And also paper bags are produced by new trees, and that can also negatively impact the carbon footprint. And of course, paper weighs more than plastic, so that's also a higher cost in terms of transport. So getting back to the ban plus fee, there are certainly municipalities in Pennsylvania that have ordinances with no fee, but we have a lot of evidence that suggests that the ban plus fee combination is more effective at reducing the use of single-use plastics. And basically, if businesses will benefit if we have a fee because they will be able to offset any additional costs for their supply chain adjustment. And also, if we have a fee in place, it creates more of an incentive for those to bring their own bags and to not want to use paper bags at all. This is a study, and this is a QR code, which you can, review later, that discusses why a ban plus fee model is more effective than just a ban. Okay, so with that, I'll give it to Karen. We have some results for a survey.
Okay. Seems like there's feedback on this.
Oh, is there?
I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Push it back a little bit.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Sure you could use some water. Okay. So we started with a survey. It went out in the next couple of slides. I think it mentions when we started the survey. I think it was March in 2022. It was open up to everyone, and you see the results on the next couple of slides. We had 652 folks who completed the survey, and 25 were non-Abington residents, 627 were Abington residents. So, do you have reusable bags was one of our questions, and as you can see, 92% do have them. Some other simple, do you use the reusable bags? And yes, 53%, 36% said when I remember, and we don't have a percentage because it's a little too small on the graph for no. If a nominal fee was placed on shopping, which of the following would you, to use bags when shopping, would you pay the fee or what would you do? So 71% said bring the reusable bag, 23% said depends on the fee, and then a small amount was to pay the fee. So here's our timeline for when we started. So the survey came out in March 2022. The first single-use plastic bag Southeastern Pennsylvania coalition meeting was in November of 2021. And that's how we got started on the survey. In September 2022, we analyzed the results and provided a draft in January of 2023 to the township for consideration. Due to some other initiatives throughout the year, then we came to we came up to the plate, I guess is how I like to call it. So in September, we were told, yes, we're going to move forward with it. Let's have a public information session, which is what we're all here for. And then in November, this is tentatively placed on the November agenda for the Board of Commissioners to be up for potential revision, and then it would go to vote in December. And the ordinance would be adopted in January with a proposed start date of April or March of 2024. I know there was one thing I wanted to point out. So what you don't see is, did we talk to the businesses? And we didn't. And the reason why we didn't is because there's a lot of retail stores, large retail stores. I know that there are some smaller stores as well. So, but the larger retail stores such as Target, Michael's, Acme, Giant, TJ Maxx, CVS, Rite Aid, there is, as part of this coalition, the other townships that have successfully passed bans reached out to their corporate offices. And all of them said the same thing. We will abide by any township regulation regarding plastic bags So we didn't feel that it was necessary to go that route because we had kept hearing the same thing over and over and over again on the meetings with the Southeastern Pennsylvania, again, regarding the large retail stores. So the process that we want to implement is the review and approval of the proposed ordinance as soon as possible, as outlined on the timeline that I mentioned. Have a phased-in approach to spread awareness, educate the businesses and the consumers, allow them time to ask questions. One of the things that stands out in my mind as part of the coalition is to have signage on the door to remind folks to go back to their car if they didn't bring their reusable bags with them, so that there's not that, I don't want to say argument, but that confrontation at the cashier level for the fee when they use the bags, if they didn't bring a reusable bag. So the ordinance adoption, again, we're hoping in the beginning of the year, and to start March, April 2024. One of the things that feedback as part of the coalition that we also received was, don't start it before the holidays. That was a big thing. Let's wait until after the holiday season, when in first quarter, because it would be difficult for their staff to enforce the fee. So some recommendations, other than what I've already mentioned, if there is a hardship of any resident because they don't have any reusable bags, that can be provided by the township, and we will be partially or possibly fully funding the obtaining of those bags. We have also, asking the residents to potentially gift reusable bags. Other ideas is have the stores donate the bags, so they often have reusable bags as well. Also identifying a student or scout group to do reusable bag drives and have a bag share, as seen on this screen. Have just a bag full of bags that people can just take or donate. So enforcement, it would be the residents would be the eyes and the ears, not that code enforcement would be making sure that all of the businesses are following what they should be following. There's a couple of email addresses here to notify if some business is not following the ordinance. And here are the penalties if they don't follow the ordinance. Again, all suggested, proposed, nothing has been set in stone as of yet. So education, promoting consistency of information, education materials of all the Abington businesses. There's a website here from West Goshen Township, which has a lot of information, educational information, so we would have a web page on the township website that would also contain all of the information needed. We can offer question and answer sessions, as well as a FAQ page on the website, and post reminders on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those pages that we have on social media. So does anybody have any questions? That's the end of our presentation. If anybody has a question that you want to email, or you can, whatever the question process is, something like coming off of mute or something like that, raise your hand. But here are the links, and again, this presentation will be posted on the website so that you can, digest more of what we have on this presentation.
Oh, yes, I see a raised hand. That's from, looks like Gregory. We'll go ahead and open his mic or allow him to speak. All right, go ahead, Gregory. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, well, my question, first of all, is, so the single-use plastic ban is mostly just about plastic bags. It's not about, like, getting a case of water, that a bottle of water is
Correct.
single-use plastic.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. We're taking baby steps.
Right.
We're basically focused on single-use plastic bags, plastic straws, plastic stirrers. Oh, and expanded polystyrene. I don't know if I mentioned that. Did I mention the slide?
It was on the slide.
Okay, yes, I meant to mention that as well, sorry. Expanded polystyrene, also more commonly known as styrofoam, is also
Right.
what we are proposing to ban. But yes, bottled water is not part of this proposal.
Correct.
Okay, and then you also mentioned the paper bag issue. So
Yes.
I primarily shop at like Whole Foods, and they only use paper bags.
Right.
That's right.
So I do bring my own bags when I can, but sometimes I need to use their paper bags, and they're 100% recycled. So why is that a problem?
Well, basically, they are technically recyclable, and I think
Well, they're also made from recycled materials.
they're made from recycled material, yes. But in some cases, they are also not necessarily made from recycled materials. But I think, that's a valid point, but I think that part of the issue is that even if it's made from recycled materials, it's still costly in terms of water and energy usage. So you could have, virgin paper bags or recycled paper bags, but ultimately, it's still a cost in terms of, the energy that's being used to produce new bags, as opposed to just bringing your own and reusing a material that doesn't need to be remade, if that makes sense.
And there's a carbon footprint with producing the paper bags as well. So if you shop, when this ban is put into, if this ordinance passes as is, and the ban goes into effect, if you decide that either you didn't bring enough reusable bags into you to go shopping, and you have to use a paper bag from Whole Foods, that would incur a cost. If that, again, if the ordinance is proposed, approved as is. So to avoid the fee is to bring in your reusable bags. That's the bottom line.
Okay. Not real happy with this, but whatever.
Teresa?
All right, Teresa, go ahead. You might need to unmute yourself.
Teresa, you have your hand raised. Did you have a question?
You can ask her to unmute, yeah. And there's no way she can chat?
No.
Well, Teresa, if you have a question, you can email us if we're not able to communicate now. And that goes for everyone on this virtual session. If you have questions that we're not able to get to, you can email us.
Renee, you can go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. By the way, I am completely ecstatic about this proposal. I've been waiting for quite a few years
Thank you.
for this to happen. So thank you, thank you. I'm sure some people will be frustrated and there's going to be a learning curve and it's hard to change habit, but I'm very excited and I hope, I'm sure there'll be revisions, but I hope this goes through in a timely manner, but it's township stuff. Anyway, I'm sorry, back to, about the educational outreach. I was wondering, it's not a major thing. I just thought in terms of reminding people to bring in their bags, which I know is a huge issue, I love the idea of maybe incorporating, maybe having children, school children, like do a contest for a poster to put like little signs out on like lawn signs at the grocery store on the doors. I know, it's just something I thought to engage with the children. That was just my thought. Very little,
It's a great suggestion, Renee. Appreciate that.
All right, but thank you for all the work you've done.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting us.
Anyone else? So we have Kristen?
Kristen? Hi, Kristen. Go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We sure can.
Okay. My name's Kristen Kugelman. I live at Parkdale and Edgeley. Just showing support for this project. It's definitely an idea whose time has come. Personally, on my end, 2 reasons why. One, microplastics are a huge deal that we've just started to understand the impact of. And 2, as somebody who works in the neighborhood to keep it clean and green, the number of plastic bags that are flying around our community is awful. So just wanted to give everybody huge support behind this project. Would love to understand through social media how we can impress upon our commissioners to get this passed. But all in all, just speaking out to share my support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Kristen.
Anyone else have any questions? No questions.
All right.
Okay.
With that, I guess we'll Rich, take it away.
So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to participate this evening. I want to thank the EAC not only for their work on this initiative, but the EAC is very active in all that we do, review of land development plans. Their work, especially Kaki Evans' work on the climate action plan that we're still working toward, and so many other topics, has been vital for the township in moving forward. We want to just remind everyone, just as Ms. McGarry-Rosen mentioned, this is the beginning of the public information process. This will move next to the Board of Commissioners, and there will be at least 2 other steps of public comment as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We truly appreciate your time, and we will have this recorded on the website and on the EAC page as well within a matter of days. Please check in for the exact date and time. Thank you. Have a great evening.